in here?
Yes, I'm in here. I've been enjoying your limeade. It's a wonderful drink, but I'm also reading ahead a little.
Oh, okay. Thank you for pouring one for me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So what are you reading for the kids today?
Well, our next chapter is called Landing in Paris. So Sparky and Erasmus and everyone on the Burke and Hare have been flying towards Paris, and so we're going to find out what happens.
Alrighty.
Landing in Paris. Oh yeah, that's right. We left them where they were listening at the door. Oh yeah, so...
Dun, dun, dun.
Glued to the door, Sparky and Erasmus stayed there for the duration of Mr. Wallace's interruption. It seemed that Wallace's jab at Sparky's marital status was just a play to flush her out, if she were within earshot. Sparky knew this and wasn't going to fall for it. Erasmus could read all of this on her relaxed reaction and knew that she was not going to join Wallace in this bit of cat and mouse. Ironically, Erasmus didn't do much of this surreptitious snooping in his day-to-day work. So, this felt more like juvenile fun, even with Lord Ashley's somewhat serious concern that his acquaintance with Sparky might be revealed. Erasmus suddenly remembered his cane, leaning against the wall. Nothing he could do about that now, but he wondered if Wallace would have noticed it with all of the other eye-catching decorations around the sitting room. Erasmus looked around the room quickly and noticed the ornate box on the side table. His curiosity welled up. He glanced quickly back at Sparky to see if she would notice. She was busy listening at the door. Erasmus quietly flipped the lid up, revealing 3 knives neatly arranged in a red cloth-lined tray. Each was nicely made, but more functional than it was Lord Ashley's usual style. Erasmus quietly closed the lid. Wallace's hope of finding his pilot in the wrong cabin was dashed, and he bid a good night to Lord Ashley. Just as the cabin door clicked shut after Wallace's exit, Virat opened the other door to release Sparky and Erasmus. Sparky and Erasmus stepped through, and Erasmus noticed his cane was no longer against the wall. He pointed in the general direction to where it had been, and just got his mouth open to ask Virat about its disappearance when Virat produced the cane from behind his back. Erasmus gave a nod of thanks, but had the distinct feeling he was effectively asking a silent magician who had preemptively answered a question about the whereabouts of a rabbit by pulling it out of a top hat. Erasmus replaced the cane in its rightful place against the wall, and he and Sparky retook their seats. Lord Ashley opened with, "I believe your chais are now cold. My apologies. Let me instead offer a taste of port, one that you can compare to that provided after dinner." Virat transferred 2 small, elegant glasses from a tray to the table between Sparky and Erasmus and filled each halfway from a bottle of port. Then he handed a glass to Lord Ashley and poured for him. Erasmus joined the rest in raising their glass and taking a sip. This is no ordinary port, he thought. It wasn't syrupy sweet, nor did it have any bite to it, and it provided a more fruitful libation. He instinctively made a humming, yummy sound, acknowledging his approval. What I would love to hear is the adventures that you have had this week with the mad scientist and the late Mr. Abousir, Lord Ashley requested. I know the papers and their versions. I have read them all, but I want to hear it from the adventurers themselves. Sparky and Erasmus looked at each other to see who would start, and smiles came to them both. May I suggest that you start, since it was your arrival in London that set much of this in action, Erasmus offered Sparky. I would love to, she replied, and then started the tale. The tale went on for a good bit of time, and Sparky and Erasmus traded off passages that wove an intricate timeline. Lord Ashley's enthusiasm was grand and infectious, driving the storytellers on. The port continued to flow, and the time drifted by. Erasmus only interjected once to ask Sparky about her exclamation after being attacked by Mr. Abusir. "You said, 'Behold, I am become death.' I have racked my brain, but I cannot place it." Lord Ashley jumped in. "Please allow me to answer this one. It is a translation from Hindu scripture. As the writings reveal, Lord Vishnu was trying to persuade Prince Bhavagatta to do his duty. To convince him, Lord Vishnu took his many-armed form and said to the prince, 'Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.'" There are a number of translations, but this one is considered the most poetic. "I hope I have done you justice." Sparky smiled. "You are correct, my dear Lord Ashley. Until that final moment with Abusir, I have always tried to do no harm. He forced me to a place I hoped never to go." The two men nodded in agreement. Sparky's and Erasmus's syncopated narrative concluded with the boarding of the Burke and Hare, and all sat back and took a final sip of port. Erasmus felt compelled to inquire about their nightcap. "This is head and shoulders above the ports that I've had in the past, Lord Ashley." "Is it just a good bottle?" "Actually, we have finished 2 bottles." Lord Ashley noted with a chuckle and added, "It is not just a good bottle. Like most ports, it comes from the Douro River Valley in Portugal. I have been investing in a small vineyard about halfway between Sierra de Moraro mountain range and the Spanish border, overlooking the river itself. The soil there, if you can even call it soil, is harsh, rocky, and steep. The grapes have very concentrated juice, and my vintner has a special time during the fermentation when he adds the arrogante. I like the results a great deal and wanted to share it with you." Lord Ashley's guests raised their eyebrows at this and looked appreciatively at their empty glasses. "I could not help but notice your knife set in the other room," Erasmus let slip out. "Oh, don't misinterpret those. I dabble with knife throwing. More of a minor skill for parlor tricks than for actual sport. I'll demonstrate my dexterity for you someday. I promise." As the conversation veered towards knives and sports, Sparky inadvertently tugged on the chain and instinctively pulled out her delicate gold women's pocket watch. She flipped the lid and glanced down. 2:30, she shouted, and ran to the porthole and looked out. "We are quite a ways over France. Gentlemen, I must part company and get some sleep before I dock the airship in the morning. Lord Ashley, it was a great pleasure. And, Chief Inspector, I would love to show you my favorite cafe in the morning, if you would like." Until then, she left in a hurry, leaving the 2 men in stunned silence. Erasmus leaned back and grabbed his cane, stating, "Well, sir, I too must make my leave. I guess I have a breakfast appointment. An exceptional evening. Good night." And with that, Erasmus also left the room. This is wonderful, my dear.
Thank you.
Morning came early. Paris had its usual gray clouds, but it still seemed bright, and the light streamed in through Erasmus's porthole. From his cabin, the docking seemed to go smoothly. He could hear the shuffling of those passengers that were making their way off the Burke and Hare. Just as he stepped into the passage outside his cabin, Sparky took his arm. "I'm in a desperate need for a good café au lait." "Come with me, my dear sir." And the 2 of them headed for the docking tower. Sparky was full of conversational topics as they wound themselves through the streets of Paris. The next thing Erasmus knew, he was seated at a small café in the Rue de Faubourg Saint-Honoré. She had ordered herself café au lait and a small brioche.
Brioche.
Erasmus ordered a pain au chocolat and, taking a cue from Sparky, his own café au lait. He thought that one had to love a city where a grown man could order chocolate for breakfast with a straight face. The food arrived, and they started nibbling and sipping. The Parisian street was full of the usual urban hustle and bustle, but everyone seemed, well, content. It was a different feel than London, teeming with its proper business efficiency. This was more upbeat and cheerful. Then the oddest thing happened. A man dressed in blue pants, a horizontally striped shirt, and a beret rode by on a unicycle while juggling 5 red balls. Despite his concentration on the routine, he was glancing around for safety and appreciating crowd reactions. Then he saw Erasmus. At that moment, he lost all control. Balls flying, he tumbled off the unicycle and ended up sitting on the sidewalk. He looked at Erasmus again and exclaimed, "Drake, is that really you?" Erasmus squirmed a bit and slumped in his seat. Well, he thought, perhaps my past won't stay buried.
You're just going to leave it there?
That's the kind of hot potato we stick each other with. I believe the next one is yours. Well, kids, we've been reading from the Bavarian Airship Regatta. I hope you enjoyed that.
And we'll be back shortly with another episode.
I'm Chief Inspector Erasmus Drake.
And I'm Dr. Sparky McTrowell.